And Chris, all of this is going on while you are dealing with this earthquake situation. In the last half hour, it was around 9:30 when we got those first reports in that an earthquake, a magnitude 6 earthquake, had struck near Mansfield in regional Victoria. And of course, widespread shaking has been felt across Melbourne. We're hearing reports people have felt it in Geelong, in Gippsland, East Melbourne. Of course, we saw that damaged building that is on Chapel Street in South Yarra. It's also been felt up in New South Wales, in Sydney, as far out as Dubbo has been felt feeling shaking this morning. What's it like on the ground where you are, Chris? Did you feel anything? And what reports are you hearing?
Well, I was outside at the time, and as you would know, when a tram goes past, the ground shakes. So we just thought it was a tram going past. We found out later, of course, very quickly that it was a result of an earthquake. I can tell you, though, reports right across the city is of these buildings shaken for, and not for a short amount of time, for 20 and 30 seconds. And we've seen pictures of things falling off walls. And of course, that significant damage in Chapel Street. We're going to have to see just the extent of the damage. As I mentioned, 6 magnitude earthquake is quite significant. But what happened shortly after that earthquake hit, of course, was fire trucks be deployed across the city because, of course, all the fire alarms, particularly in those high-rise apartment buildings, went off. I've heard reports from friends that they've been in those apartment blocks. They've all been evacuated as the fire alarms went off. But for me personally, we were outside and, of course, we just thought it was a tram going by, only finding out later that that tremor that we felt was, of course, an earthquake.
Yeah, and there is a lot of damage. We might just see if we can go to those pictures that we were rolling before of a building on Chapel Street in South Yarra. You can see the top of the building appears to have crumbled, bricks on the ground there, people taking video, I guess, in a lot of disbelief that this has happened in Melbourne this morning. As we said, it happened at around 9:30, so just about 35 minutes ago, that first tremor struck. And we are hearing reports that people have felt it in Sydney, in Bathurst, in Dubbo. New South Wales Fire Service has been reporting that they've had people feeling shaking as far away as in New South Wales. So even though the epicentre at the moment is in Mansfield, the tremors are certainly being felt in a widespread area. And you can see that damage there. That is extraordinary. It looks like the top part of the building is actually collapsed. I think it's a burger store on Chapel Street. So that's just the first signs of any kind of damage that we are seeing. But there are reports that glass has been smashed, buildings have been evacuated. The Channel 9 building in Docklands there in Melbourne has been evacuated as a precaution this morning because, of course, once you get one earthquake, there is always the possibility that you'll get a second or a third, and sometimes the second or third is actually stronger or worse than the first one. So Melbourne, certainly a city on high alert this morning after that damage. That's a chopper shot there.
You've got a feel for the essential services of Melbourne right about now. They've been stretched to the limit as it is. They've been stretched the last few days. The police have been stretched the last few days. Now this, we don't know if anyone's been hurt yet. We hope that people haven't. But this just keeps pushing Melbourne to the limits. And so we hope to hear from Dan Andrews very soon to give us an update on all of this.
I'm just reading that it struck at a depth of about 10 kilometres, which is relatively shallow.
It is.
For an earthquake. The Christchurch quake, by comparison, was about 12 kilometres. So that gives you an idea, I suppose, of the significance of that depth.
This is the biggest earthquake in 100 years, I'm reading, in Melbourne.
It's certainly the most significant that we've felt in Australia in several years. Chris, can you give us some perspective for those who perhaps aren't familiar with this location of Chapel Street in South Yarra and where this is in relation to where you are in the CBD, where the protests are likely to occur today?
Well, Sylvia, Chapel Street, anyone that comes to Melbourne knows that Chapel Street's a very busy shopping district. Of course, it's not as busy as it would be because Melbourne is in lockdown, but it's a very popular part. It's about 10-15 minutes drive from where I am, just outside the Queen Victoria Market, so I'm on the other side of the city. I have to say, it didn't have too much effect here because we all are outside. Of course, earthquakes are usually more keenly felt when you are inside, particularly on a high-rise building, and the buildings are that we're certainly getting reports that the building shook for about 20 or 30 seconds. But of course, we did see all those fire trucks, one after the other, go to buildings that have been evacuated, and fire alarms, of course, that have been set off as a result. Police are just asking us to move, so we'll just We'll just move to the side. Because, of course, the emergency services are also dealing with this at the moment, these planned protests for the third straight day. Thankfully, at this stage, it does not look like the protests here are going to kick off. Of course, it's early days, and we've seen yesterday that things can escalate very, very quickly. But one thing I can tell you here is that they're being very proactive. They are jumping on anybody that is even coming into this vicinity and checking that they should be here for the right reason. Sorry, police are telling us to move on, so we certainly will. But it just goes to show, as you mentioned, emergency services, they've certainly been stretched over the last couple of days. And they'll probably, of course, be stretched again, depending on how much damage was actually done as a result of that earthquake. Of course, we'll get reports during the morning.
Well, let's hope this earthquake has really cooled down some of the tempers there by the people who are choosing to riot or are choosing to go through Melbourne like they have been.
Some of the activity today.
We are hearing reports that the Newcastle earthquake in 1989 was a 5.6 earthquake. This is a 6 magnitude, and it's being felt as far away as reading reports here as Tasmania and even the Central Coast itself.
I'm just reading Fire and Rescue New South Wales. They're tweeting that they have dispatched crews across New South Wales from Alexandria, Manly and Hornsby in Sydney to as far away as Dubbo in Western New South Wales, following reports of tremors felt right across the state. But Chris, this earthquake comes after several actually, very distressing days for people in Melbourne. Now we have, I suppose, this added anxiety to deal with as well in Melbourne. What is the feeling in the city today?
Well, I have to say, Sylvia, people are exhausted. I mean, to put it in perspective, of course, I think today we break the world record for the amount of days that we've been in lockdown, taking over from Buenos Aires. So that gives you an idea of how exhausted people are in Victoria. And then to see what we witnessed yesterday, these unprecedented scenes of this angry mob take over this city that we love so much. And then on top of it all today, when you think nothing else can happen, we've got this earthquake. We just have to hope that people's property wasn't that badly damaged. And we also certainly have to hope that these protests don't kick off again. We're just looking down the road a bit, down at Elizabeth Street. There looks to be another police gathering. I think, again, what they're doing is it's almost like there's some little spot fires of people congregating, and police very, very quickly swoop on those people to make sure that they should be here. If not, they are arrested. And you'll see this intersection here. It has been completely shut off by police. They are not giving any opportunity for protesters to gather like they did yesterday. But as for the feeling on the street, people are just tired, they are exhausted, they want to be out of this lockdown and they want to get life just to return to normal. You both know what nightlife is down here, like down here in Melbourne, and certainly we want that to return.
And Chris, you obviously have been feeling that earthquake in Melbourne, but it's pretty widespread. It's been felt in Geelong and Gippsland. It's also been felt up here in New South Wales, in Sydney. We've got a guy who's felt it in Rose Bay this morning. His name is Jack. Let's take a listen to what he felt just a short time ago.
So about 10 minutes ago, there was a tremor, I'd say around 9:30 a.m. Felt a tremor go through the house. It was strong enough that I felt it, lasted about 5 to 10 seconds, but not strong enough to break anything. But yeah, it was definitely noticeable.
So pretty widespread tremors being felt right across at least two states this morning, but it was a 5.8 or a 6 magnitude earthquake, I should say. Felt at about 9:30 this morning. The epicentre in Mansfield, regional Victoria, but the tremors are being felt right across a big, a large area this morning. That is damage we're looking at this morning on Chapel Street in South Yarra. It looks like it's a burger shop, and the top part of that top story has just crumbled there onto the roadway. and there's going to be some further damage you'd have to expect. If that's happened to one building, then it must have happened to plenty of others in and around that region and right across Melbourne this morning.
We're yet to hear from anyone in Mansfield, of course, where this epicentre, where the epicentre of this earthquake has been. We are trying to make contact with someone there as we speak. But this appears to be the worst damage that we have seen so far. We've heard reports of people in the northeastern suburbs of Melbourne experiencing smashed windows in their homes, people in southeastern parts of Melbourne feeling their homes shake for up to 10 seconds as well. As Lizzie confirmed, it's a 6.0 magnitude quake, potentially the strongest that we have felt, I think, since about at least 1997, I'm seeing, so for several years. And as Christina Hearn, our reporter in Melbourne, was saying, it's certainly the strongest tremors she has experienced. Our Docklands studio in Melbourne was evacuated for some time as well.
We have Isabella Stashkoshki now. She is down, I think, on Chapel Street. Isa, where are you and what are you seeing?
Good morning, guys. We're just off Chapel Street here, and this is what you can see. This wall has just absolutely collapsed. There are plenty of people here actually looking around to see some of this damage. We've had a number of officials here as well, a number of authorities checking what is going on. This is all roped off. That's the main street of Chapel Street right there. This is really the heart of South Yarra, quite a busy area, a lot of restaurants and cafes this morning. That is all cordoned off, as you can see, in that number of sections here. We're out the front of Betty's Burgers. I'm joined now by Patrick. Patrick's a resident here. You felt the earthquake. Tell us what you felt.
Yeah, it was a bit dramatic. I felt the building rattle. So I grabbed my puppy and went underneath the doorway and just, let it unfold. Did you have any idea that it was an earthquake at the time, or were you concerned? No, I actually thought it was as a result of the tunnel works that were happening near me. But it soon, unfolded that it was an earthquake. So waited for the news. And you've come here to check it out. Can you describe what it looks like to us? I didn't expect this, to be honest, but I can understand, like, the buildings are a little bit old, so if this is not double brick, perhaps, it would collapse a little bit from the top. Yes, certainly right. And we're hearing reports that there are damaged buildings like this pretty much everywhere across Victoria. We've heard a lot of people out in the suburbs surrounding here. Are you hearing that as well from, friends and family? I've had a number of people calling me, seeing if I'm okay as well. Yeah, that's right. It's been felt throughout the state, and hopefully it's not too dramatic for everyone. Thanks so much for your time, Patrick. And guys, we'll just show you how many people are actually out here. Everyone is just coming out here to take photos. Oh, now they're stepping away. But they're coming out here to take photos and see the damage. This is really the one building that's been seen on social media that's collapsed. And as you can see, that damage really is quite extensive. If you take a look at all these bricks out here as well, of course, we're getting more and more reports of similar incidents. This just happened quite recently. It was about 9:15. We're actually travelling in our crew car and it felt like the whole entire vehicle was shaking there as well. But yeah, obviously something that's really unfolding here in Victoria. Reports right across metropolitan areas and regional areas as well, guys.
Who are those people gathered behind you there, Isa? Can you talk us through what's happening in the streets around you this morning?
Yeah, so there's just people out here with their dogs, families just here taking photographs. You can see people here just behind us as well. There's a whole bunch of, I'd say maybe 30, 40 people around here in this section. As you can see, there's some rope here as well. So it's kind of cordoned off here, then it's cordoned off across the other streets. There's a few other news crews, as you can see, over on that other side next to the Liquorland shop. But just plenty of people coming out to see what's happened. I think everyone really in Melbourne actually did feel that tremor at the time. It was about 45 minutes ago or so now, and it's just kind of continuing. We're now finding out the damage. But if you look at this building, for example, this is a huge old building. It's double brick. If that started collapsing, you'd imagine that there is damage to be assessed right around the area. You can see these guys working, trying to figure out what to do next. But yeah, a lot of people coming out, and actually many more since we've been here just in the past few moments. I think maybe 10 to 15 other families have just come up to see what has actually happened, because everyone's felt this tremor and it's just trying to work out what is going on.
I'm just reading that Geoscience Australia has revised it down to a 5.8 magnitude quake, but still that's a very significant tremor, and you can see by the damage that it has certainly done quite a job, hasn't it? Have you noticed any other damage in your travels around the city in the crew car this morning, Isa? Which other areas have really felt this?
Well, I know that we've had reports all the way out from, we're just getting moved moved along here. I think they're saying that it's not too safe to be up too close, but we have heard reports out in the southeastern suburbs that people have felt this kind of damage. People have felt it in the CBD. We're about 15 to 20 minutes out of the CBD right now. So yeah, people are about 30, 40 minutes out of the CBD. We know around that Mansfield area in regional Victoria, there are a lot of reports there as well. But as you can see, if this has gone down straight away, you'd have to think about the structural integrity around this area as well. So it seems like a very busy day in Melbourne. I mean, this is just one event here on Chapel Street. We don't know how many other buildings affected right now, but you'd be safe to say there'll be certainly many more.